In pursuit of sales, game developers, or to be more precise, game companies and publishers, are trying to appeal to broader audiences, so that people who would not have played their games for one reason or another would supposedly want to play their games. That's what they mean when they talk about modern audience. They are trying to be more inclusive. They are making games less controversial to not offend anyone. They are making them more family friendly and so on. Although I don't want to transform my channel into one of those anti-woke gaming channels, it is true that game companies use it as a means to broaden their market reach into new audiences. Like, we would sell 100,000 copies, but if we add gays into the game, gays that would not have played the game would also play the game, so we will sell 120,000 copies. That's their thought process. And yes, they do not actually care about this stuff, it is just a marketing strategy. A recent example is Ex Voto Game, where the developers were bragging about how they are passionate about telling LGBTQ stories. But as soon as the game got released, they deleted the LGBTQ+ tag from Steam. I've made a video about that recently. As soon as they didn't have use for it, they threw their precious LGBTQ+ values into the trash bin, disposing of it like a garbage. So yes, it is just a marketing strategy for absolute majority of companies. But again, enough about that. The important thing is that by prioritizing third-party audiences, game developers often forget about their actual audience. Gamers. They take gamers for granted as if they will play anything they release. Now in this video we will discuss the thing that game developers don't prioritize, although it will increase their sales, because those are the things that you, gamers, want. And the first thing is the prices. While a lot of game companies desire and raise prices for their games, from $60 then to $70 then to $80, and now they hope GTA 6 will cost $100 so that they could charge $100 too. Other, smarter developers are doing the opposite and are winning over the gamers. Sandfall Interactive released Clair Obscure Expedition 33 for $50 plus a free DLC. Embark Studio released Ark Raiders for $40, and Team Cherry released Hollow Knight Silksong for $20. Do I even have to say that those games were extremely popular? And yes, the price accessibility definitely played a huge role in their success. And the best example of that is Silksong. In just 3 months, the game sold over 7 million copies of pure sales, and even more millions gamers played it on Game Pass. Now imagine the game would cost $70. Do you think they would sell that many copies? The answer is no. Even though the original Hollow Knight was a huge success, the reason why so many people picked up the game on release is because people saw the hype, saw the price and thought, why not, it is only $20. And also don't forget that the original Hollow Knight was $15 on release. And the game companies would say, the cost of developing games has been growing with each year. Yes, so does the amount of gamers. In the history of the world, there wasn't a time where there were more gamers in the world than now. So you have more customers. All you have to do is create good games and sell them. It is that easy. Gaming as it is the most expensive media to consume. To be a gamer is very expensive. For example, it is much cheaper to be an anime watcher. All you need is to buy Crunchyroll once a month and you gain access to almost all anime in the world. And you don't need special hardware to run it. You can watch it on your phone that you already have anyway. So the main point of this topic is that to gain more and attract more gamers, being more financially accessible is quite a good strategy. And increasing the price beyond what gamers are ready to spend is not the best idea. To AAA developers who say that game development is too expensive to lower the prices, I have to say this: cut the promotion budget. Why the hell half of your budget goes to marketing and I don't see any ads for your game? Before raising the prices for the games, first optimize your spending. Just look at Oblivion Remastered release. They just released a trailer a day before the release and sold millions of copies. The rest of the promotions YouTubers did for free. Majority of popular franchises don't actually need any promotion. I'm sure that majority of all the promotion money that majority of companies spend are just money that the people in charge steal for themselves. Now, enough about that. The topic number 2 is the optimization. Yes, some people may say that if you want good graphics, you ought to have good hardware. And yes, it is a fair statement, but why sometimes bad or mediocre graphics demand good hardware too? For example, my PC is quite weak, I need to upgrade it. One of the things being RAM. Yeah, I know, I'm cooked. Still, I get it when my PC struggles with games that have good graphics, but I don't like when it struggles with games that look like garbage. For example, Dragon Age The Veilguard, a game that I have a very cool video critique about that you should absolutely check out. It looks like an early PS4 era game. It isn't an open world game, and it doesn't really have anything outstanding about it that might demand good hardware. But it demands hardware like a good modern game. Ever since I've played that game, that fact bothered me, and it's just one example. Another one is the recent Ex-Voto game that I have mentioned earlier. I wanna say a simple thing that a game that looks like this doesn't have the right to demand good hardware. So why it does? Because Ex-Voto is an Unreal Engine 5 game. And Unreal Engine 5 is a modern engine that demands good hardware and can look pretty good, but it isn't a given. Unreal Engine 5 is a tool, and to achieve a good looking game you have to put in the effort. And if you lack the skill to use that tool properly like the developers of Ex-Voto, the game will end up looking like garbage. And if the game is bound to look like garbage, why do you have to use such an advanced tool that will demand good hardware from your customers? What I'm trying to say is that game developers who don't strive for photorealistic visuals should consider using older, less demanding engines, so that the game would run better for gamers with less powerful PCs, and consequently the developers would have more customers. And it is not like games on older engines means that the game will be ugly. For example, Lies of P has astonishing visuals and is an Unreal Engine 4 game. In general, using high-end engine and then not use all the advanced system of it is like to use Dodge Ram as a golf car. Yes, you can do it, but it is not a wise choice. So to summarize this section, if developers want to have more customers, they should make games run better. And if they aren't gonna strive for extremely good graphics, they should consider using less demanding software to develop their games. If the game doesn't look good and it also demands good hardware, it is a mistake of the developer and they will sell less games. Now, before we move on, let me quickly suggest you subscribe to the channel. I have a lot of interesting videos you might be interested in. For example, a video about Japanese game development, a similar video about French game development, a video analysis on companions in games, a discussion on whether games are art, and so many more cool videos and topics. Tops, analytics, critiques, everything you need, I have it. So subscribe now to not lose it. The issue number 3 is that a lot of games are concentrated too much on the plot instead of gameplay. And don't get me wrong, I like games with good plot, but the main issue here is that it has to be good. I like, for example, Expedition 33 plot, and I'm glad that the game has a lot of plot. But a lot of games don't have good plots, yet they act like they do and put a lot of emphasis on it. For example, the recent Vampire Masquerade Bloodline 2. Not that it had good gameplay either, but at least I was not that bored. Whenever I would go to sleep in the game and I understood that now we're gonna have the detective's perspective on the story, I was just exhausted. No, not again. Just Sibao, put the bag in the bro. A very slow burning plot that didn't hook you and you spent too much time in it. And it's not only with that game, for example Avowed. I was so frustrated with uninteresting dialogues of companions that closer to the end of the game I was just skipping them. Usually I'm very patient and I never skip dialogues and cutscenes in games, but in Avowed the boredom was too unbearable. Sometimes it is good just to jump right into gameplay, for example like in Hollow Knight games, or in Souls games. Again, if the story is good I have no issues, it is just that the developers need to be self-aware about their stories. If it is good, okay, you can have a lot of it. If it is boring, just wrap it up and give us the gameplay. The issue number 4 will be a short one, localizations to different languages. A good way to broaden the audience of your game with actual gamers is to make more localizations so that the gamers who previously weren't able to understand the game now would be able to play it too. I'm talking about text localizations that are good, but also full voiceover localizations. Because unlike anime, for example, where you can just pause and go back if you miss some dialogues, in games you can't actually do that. And not even that, you are bound to miss dialogues in fights, pursuits, and in general in the middle of some action. So text localizations are good, but full voiceover is even better. Now, you probably noticed that almost everything that I've talked about up until now was about how to make games more accessible to the actual gamers. So instead of game developers seeking the audiences among the third-party people, I think they should prioritize making games more accessible for the actual gamers. Offer lower prices, better optimization, don't waste players' time by concentrating on the plot too much if the plot isn't very good, and finally make games more accessible for the people who don't speak English. I think those are all good things and a great way for game companies to broaden their audience with actual gamers and with people who desire games and gaming, instead of people who don't give an F about gaming. And the last issue, number 5, that is not linked to accessibility but rather the quality of games. But it is also a thing that I think has to stop, meaning that game companies are trying to make games less controversial, make them family friendly, but in actuality they are making games plain and boring. For example, again, Dragon Age the Veilguard. They made such a pure, plain and boring game that it was unbearable. Your character is just so kind that I actually wanna puke, and the game doesn't give you options to do something questionable. No, that's not the actions that BioWare want to associate with. That's why you're infinitely kind. Not only you are infinitely kind, but also your companions. For example, Lucanis, an assassin. He found out that someone among them betrayed him, and that's after he chose to abandon his city, and it's supposed to make him harsher. So I expected him to brutally murder the traitor, but he sent him to prison. A harsh assassin sends traitors to prison. Where is the public, brutal, cruel and bloody execution? Again, I've talked about it in my Veilguard critique, so if you wanna check it out, please do. And also subscribe to not miss the channel, I have a lot of interesting videos already. Now let's move on. But that's the modern BioWare. It is the kind of thing that you would expect from modern BioWare. But very often that's not only about such progressive studios, but also about studios that you would expect to be more daring. For example, Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red. And don't get me wrong, Cyberpunk is a great game. For example, I've made my first Cyberpunk impression video where the whole video is basically me praising the game. I also made a Cyberpunk critique video, you can also check it out. Overall it is a great game, but actually in Cyberpunk you almost never can do something questionable. It would seem that Cyberpunk universe is very harsh, so that the game must be brutal. And it is true, V, the main character, is constantly being betrayed by others. For example, I've made a video top 10 video game betrayals, where 4 of them are from Cyberpunk. And there are actually even more betrayals in Cyberpunk. But you as a gamer are almost always forced to be a good guy. If you kill the bad guys. You can't actually be evil. Or at least it is almost always in the gray area. Thus, the game tries to not be very controversial despite being set in a brutal universe. Actually, V being constantly a victim of betrayals is a great mask of a brutal game. One more aspect of games trying to not be controversial is that in almost all games you can't harm, let's say, certain groups of people, as you can see on your screen for example. Not that I wanna say that it is a good thing to do so. No, it is bad, but it actually harms the immersion into the game world. The game doesn't let you to be evil by taking away your freedom to choose to be evil. It actively is breaking the laws of the game world to stop you. Again, sorry for bringing up anime again, I'm not an anime channel, but in anime they are less worried about controversial topics like this. Instead, they see it as a tool to show the brutality of the world and people. It is something that games don't have courage to do. I think that the intention to be less controversial holds back game developers, and we get worse stories because of it. It is not that doing bad things is what gamers want. In absolute majority of cases, gamers choose to be good if given a choice, yet taking away that choice is not a very good idea. Having it is good for evil playthroughs and immersion. Now, this video has been in making for so long that some things have happened. For example, my take about lowering the prices. In the meanwhile, Xbox decided to lower the prices of Game Pass. Yet another proof that some companies started realizing that you can't just infinitely raise the prices without losing the customers. And the second thing is when I mentioned that games have giant marketing budgets, but there's almost no advertisements for them. And in the meanwhile, the trailer to the next Metro game came out, and it is probably the first game that I actually can see where the advertisement money went. Sadly not to me, but yes. The first game where I actually can see that the marketing money actually went towards marketing. Now, thank you for watching, thank you for your likes, subscriptions and comments. Sorry for leaving you without content for so long, too much work lately. Now, also don't forget to check out my other videos on the channel. See you there.